So back to now what we were talking about just a moment ago, and that's the potential budget deal that could be unfolding in Congress today. So where do we go from here, and why aren't we seeing some reform, some might ask, to actual government spending? Let's bring in David Drucker, who watches these things for a living. He's a senior correspondent for the Washington Examiner. David, welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
Good to have you with us. So, I think a lot of folks sort of watched this kind of float under the radar, and now they're looking up and saying, well, what's in this deal? What kind of budget did we get, if we get it?
Well, we got the budget that was possible. Nobody wants a government shutdown, and I think that's the primary driver behind both sides of the aisle trying to find something that they can get through the House, the Republican House, and the Democratic Senate. And I think if you want to know why there's not a grand bargain, why there are not some sort of attack on entitlement spending, why there's not a wholesale replacement of sequestration, it's because everybody tried to do what was possible, not what they wish they could do.
Yeah, there's some reporting out there that says that, Paul Ryan and Patty Murray, who, strange bedfellows, very different philosophies on how these things should be done, and it looks like they were able to get together on this deal, but that they had the space to do the deal because, the whole world is focused on health care. You think that's true?
Well, I think that health care created the motivation for them. It created the motivation for their colleagues to allow them to reach a deal that was possible. So normally what we'd have, Martha, of course, is Republicans pushing for massive entitlement cuts, massive spending cuts. You'd have Democrats pushing for a lot more spending, for tax increases and all of that. And they, as we've seen over the past couple of years, they come to blows over it. They can't agree. We end up on the brink of a shutdown or on the brink of a default and all of that. And having gone through the government shutdown, Republicans don't want to try that again, nor do they want to distract from the problem that is the Affordable Care Act. Democrats don't want another shutdown because in terms of the president's leadership, I don't think that they necessarily believe he could take the hit. And so they'd like to get this thing off the table. And so what healthcare has done is created an environment where getting a deal that's possible was preferable to getting no deal.
I pay no attention to my left hand over here while my right hand is talking about this healthcare issue, 24/7 basically. But Paul Ryan, in terms of his future, his political future, obviously he was a vice presidential candidate. Are people going to look back at this deal and say, why didn't you push for, real spending cuts? And what we got, according to Stuart Varney, at least in one aspect of this, is increased airline taxes.
Well, I think that anything's possible, and clearly in a Republican primary, if he does run for president, I'm sure his opponents will attack him for that. But if you look at Paul Ryan, he was the guy asking for entitlement reform and massive spending cuts and things of that nature long before any Republican wanted to touch it. In fact, you could argue that everything that conservatives are asking for in terms of the budget come from what Ryan led them to believe was possible and doable and should be done. So he's definitely got a way to defend himself from that. Whether he can depends on the political atmospherics of a race that may or may not happen.
All right, we got to go. So very quickly, what do you think is going to happen now? Is it going to go through?
I'm really not sure. What I can tell you is if this deal falls apart, House Republicans are going to put on the floor a 60 to 90-day continuing resolution at sequestration levels of $967 billion, and they'll pass it by Friday. That's what I think.
Yeah, boy. Congress has gotten away with doing very little in this part of the job description for a very long time. David Drucker, thank you very much for filling in the blanks for us. Good to have you here.
Hey, thank you.